guys, what's going on? Welcome to Pretty Rich Podcast. I am testing out some new equipment right now. Apparently, this equipment is going to allow me to stream live from my DSLR. My best friend Julie set it up for me, we've been working together for more than one hand now, And it's supposed to stream on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and everything all at the same time. This is my first experience with it. And it's also supposed to record on 4K or whatever in high resolution onto my desktop or laptop. This is a new experience for me. I'm seeing kind of a delay, so I'm getting a little bit used to it. But as you guys know, I go live inside Beauty Biz Secrets Facebook group as well as Instagram. And if you are not a part of Beauty Biz Secrets in the Facebook group, you are missing out on a lot of these behind the scenes, on the fly recordings of Pretty Rich Podcasts. And also inside Beauty Biz Secrets Facebook group, you also get the first 10 minutes of every course I've ever created. So if you're interested in hiring, if you're interested in getting new clients or how to grow your gram, gotta join Beauty Biz Secrets on Facebook. If you're a permanent makeup artist, a lash artist, anybody in the beauty industry, it's full of free marketing advice and tips. And more importantly, it's full of community, which we're going to talk about on today's podcast. But before we start, I just wanted to encourage you guys to go to getpmuclients.com. Getpmuclients.com is a completely free training that offers proven strategies with advice for achieving real results. It has a financial freedom flight path specifically for beauty entrepreneurs, a bulletproof sales script for those of you that are trying to sell out your trainings as well as your services, and a lot of free tips for growing your Instagram following. You're going to get a lot of the tools you need to succeed. It's completely free. So don't wait. Get pmuclients.com to start achieving your goals. Today's podcast, I was inspired by a quote that I read on Instagram the other day about arguing for your limitations. If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And it sounds pretty straightforward, right? That's a quote from Gay Hendricks, who I believe is the author of The Great Leap. No one would intentionally argue for their limitations, would they? But I see you guys do it all the time. I do it all the time. We do it every day, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. You might be saying, well, I could never own a team and make 7 figures a year. I see a lot of you guys do that all the time. A lot of you guys say that you'd rather work solo. You're just good working solo. You had a bad experience one time, and so you just know that you just work better solo. You also might say something like, well, that's okay with her, but I couldn't do that. She just has what it takes. I'm just bad with people. I like working alone. She's a really talented artist and trainer. I don't have the authority to teach. Why would anyone want to learn from me? She's a really amazing social media influencer. She's really confident on camera and she's so pretty. I don't look like that. I don't feel like that. I couldn't do what she does. I don't have that kind of look or confidence. I've heard you guys say this. Right? It's such an insidious perspective that we carry around with us all the time. And there are literally thousands of negative perceptions that roll around our heads every day. Take notice sometimes, because I feel like most of us are just on autopilot and you're not even really taking notice of all of the things that you tell yourself you can't do. You're literally arguing for your limitations. You're building a case for your limitations all day long. Is this relating with anyone? Do you think that you might be doing some damage by not being aware of this? I want you guys to know that we all have it, so all of you should be nodding your heads, saying, yes, Sheila, yes, I do that. But just for a moment, close your eyes, relax, and bring to mind all the negative perceptions that you have about yourself. There's going to be more than one. Imagine if you didn't need to carry them around anymore, right? So imagine if all of those negative feelings, negative thoughts, those insecurities were just erased. What would you do today? What would you attempt today? What would you put on your calendar that's different? Who would you be having a conversation with right now? What would you be attempting to accomplish right now? And what you're trying to do, because you're listening to Pretty Rich Podcasts, is probably you're trying to douse those negative thoughts because you know that this is a super positive podcast, that this is literally free. I get nothing from what I'm doing right now. I'm not getting paid for what I'm doing right now, except knowing that some of you who really need it are going to listen to it, and you're going to throw away all those nasty thoughts that keep circulating in your heads, and you're going to inch forward towards a more positive mindset. And that's what drives me, because I was in your shoes once. There are thoughts that hold us back from realizing our true potential. I was there, and I sometimes am still there. That's why we need each other to to get our heads in the game because entrepreneurship is hard. But think about it. If it could be that simple to erase those thoughts, what's something different that you are going to do today? What would your calendar look like that's different? What is something that you wouldn't normally risk if you didn't have all those negative thoughts holding you back? Where would you be now if 10 years ago you didn't listen to them? Where would you be now? Well, what are you going to do with the next 10 years of your life? So in today's episode of Pretty Rich Podcast, I'm going to chat with you guys about how to argue for your dreams and not your limitations. And I'm going to give you guys 3 steps for how to literally, it's not an exaggeration. If you listen to these tips, I truly believe that it can be life-changing because it's the same strategies that I use to change my own mindset. For those of you who aren't familiar with my story, I'm an immigrant from the Philippines. I came here when I was 8 years old. English is my second language. My dad came here with 7 kids. There were 10 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment. And we were living in a really bad part of town with not a whole lot of money. And within 3 years, my dad became a homeowner. And he moved us to a better part of town in the San Fernando Valley. And because that was my example, I've always believed in non-traditional ways of succeeding because my dad wasn't traditionally educated in the States. He was educated in the Philippines. He had a thick Filipino accent, and he sold tools at the swap meet and gave us a great life. When I was in my 20s, I did a lot of musical theater, and I got married. Then I got divorced. Then at 28 years old, I found myself a rock bottom. I was working at Dylan's Irish Pub on Hollywood and Vine, thinking I was going to get a head start. And then I got fired from that job. And when I got fired from that job, I was devastated. And I realized that nobody would take me seriously if I didn't take myself seriously. So I decided to enroll in a permanent makeup class. Permanent makeup, tattooing eyebrows for a living, and that's what I wanted to do. And my entire goal at that time was honestly just to help my then boyfriend, now husband, pay rent. Just help him pay rent, just so I wouldn't be such a mooch, right? And within 3 years, that blew up to a multi-million-dollar business, and it ran for several years until 2020 when the pandemic hit and my salon was closed. I was forced to close. In California, salons were closed the longest out of all of the states, and I had to pivot. So instead of waiting for the world to open up, I created my second multi-million-dollar business, this time completely online, called Pretty Rich Bosses. And in Pretty Rich Bosses, what we do is we help beauty entrepreneurs make multiple 6 or even 7 figures, just like I did, because I had all this know-how. And we do it now. I have a team of 35 women globally, and we have hundreds of students inside this program. And our guarantee is if you join, double your income or your money back. And that is what I do now. I am happily married, I have 3 boys, and I'm a Christian. So welcome to my life. If you are the first-time listener of Pretty Rich Podcast, typically on these podcast episodes, I will read the review of the day, and the review of the day is from Gigi Rosales. Guys, thank you so much for these reviews. And she says, I would say, 1, the top coach. If you've ever considered starting a PMU artist business, don't walk to grab a device to listen to Sheila Bella on this podcast. Run. Hand to the good Lord, y'all. She has so much knowledge, and she completely transparently and authentically shares it with us. Pretty cool. Thank you so much, Gigi. I read all of these reviews, and it honestly makes a big difference. If you want to spread the love, if you want to normalize 7-figure beauty businesses, the best thing you can do for me and for the cause is to write a review on iTunes, a 5-star review. And I would love to read your review on the next episode of Pretty Rich Podcast because these reviews help this podcast rank. And if this podcast ranks, then it helps other beauty business owners discover it. And so I think it's just all about up-leveling the community and passing on a really positive message. So back to the podcast. Today, arguing for your dreams. Have you ever felt like you just can't achieve something because of a limitation that you know you've placed on yourself? Like you're aware that you've placed it on yourself? And maybe you've told yourself that you're just not good enough or that you don't have what it takes to succeed. But the truth is, if you argue for your limitations, just like what Gay Hendricks says, you'll get to keep them. Do you want to keep them? And it's not always easy to recognize when we're doing this because sometimes these negative thoughts, they sneak up on us, and before we know it, we're acting on them. It's holding us back from reaching our truest potential. And we might convince ourselves that we're not talented enough, or we don't have the right look or personality or the right tools, and we have all these setbacks. And what ends up happening is that you burn the day. You just end up sitting on the couch, just burning the day because you didn't even realize it, but you just thought about all the negativity and you've let these limitations rule you. So I want to tell you something important, that a lot of these limitations that we put on ourselves aren't real. They're just stories we tell ourselves, and they only have the power that we give them. A lot of them aren't real, and I could prove it to you because there are people who are probably in a worse position than you, who are achieving more than you right now, who are ahead right now because they didn't listen to all of their insecurities. So we can choose to let go of these negative perceptions and build a case for why we can versus why we can't. So if you're ready to break free from these self-imposed limitations, buckle up. I'm going to give you 3 tips, okay? It's not just tips, there's steps. You have to do them in order. Take a deep breath. Here we go. Join me on this journey. I want to help you unlock your truest, fullest potential. Okay, 3 steps. The first step is understanding your brain. You have to understand your brain. For example, my Tesla. So the computer was like bugging a little bit. And then so my husband told me that I can't take that car just to any mechanic. I have to take it to a Tesla specialist. Oh, why? Because a Tesla specialist knows how to work a Tesla, like how a Tesla works and the mechanics and the computer systems of a Tesla. Okay, makes sense. You can't fix something if you don't understand how it works. So essentially, your brain is an engine and you are the car. So I'm going to teach you how your brain works and how your brain is wired. First, you have to recognize that your brain is naturally arguing for your limitations, because your brain, she's very simple. She's very simple. She's a simple organ. She has one job. Your brain is designed to keep you safe. It's not designed to make you rich. It's not designed to make you hot or successful or have a banging body. It's designed to keep you safe. And every time your brain thinks about risk, discomfort like starting a business, like going live, putting a down payment on a studio, reaching out to an influencer, or doing something consistently uncomfortable like that in any degree, your brain's like, no, I'm not going to do that. That is not safe. We got to stay alive. Your brain recognizes it as danger. All of the bad things that could happen in your life, your brain plays this horror movie for you all the time because it's trying to keep you alive. It's horrifying, right? It really sucks. I want you to know that you're not alone, and this is natural, and there's a reason for this. Listen, when I was a kid, I remember being constantly insecure. From just living in constant insecurity. I didn't even think about putting on a fake smile to get away from annoying questions like, are you okay? But I was insecure on the inside. A study done by psychologists at Queen's University found that we have more than 6,000 thoughts every day. But what's even more interesting is that most of these thoughts are either bad or keep happening over and over. In 2005, the National Science Foundation wrote an article about how 80% of our thoughts are negative, and more than 90% of them are the same negative thoughts from the day before. And you are not to blame, because different things lead to negative thoughts and feelings. And most of the time, we don't even know when we're feeling bad because we're just so used to it. We're just so used to our brain trying to keep us safe. The most important thing to remember is that your brain isn't set up to make you rich. Your brain's main job is to keep you safe and make sure you stay alive. So your body, your brain in particular, don't care if you're happy or not, if you're rich or not, if you're hot or not. There was research that was published in Science Advances says that our brains have been around for 40,000 years. Now, if you lived 40,000 years ago, your main goal would have been to stay alive. Our ancestors cared a lot more about staying safe because even small mistakes or accidents could kill them. Back hundreds of years ago, this tendency to focus on the bad was important for survival. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors had to deal with immediate environmental threats and that we don't even have to worry about anymore. We don't have to worry about lions. Our ancestors needed to worry about predators all the time. When was the last time a lion chased you down at Whole Foods? So being more aware of how you're programmed, because our brains aren't any different than they were 40,000 years ago. It made sense for them to worry about staying safe and living. We don't have to worry about survival to that degree, but our brains are still wired in that same fight or flight mentality. Our brains no longer try to keep us safe from wild animals and death, but instead, they try to keep us safe from all kinds of bad things, like a broken heart, an embarrassing moment at a party, right? Losing out money, on a business. Also, your brain doesn't like surprises, which is why you often think about the next bad thing that could go wrong, even if they aren't likely. Your brain doesn't like surprises. Your brain remembers to when you've been hurt. So it stops you from doing that same thing again. Now, some of this is good, but if it gets to the point where it's crippling and you're not risking anymore, we have a big problem. We're making a big deal out of a small problem, and we turn small problems into big ones. Even though our brain's main job is to keep us alive, the good news is we can change how we think, act, and in the end, feel. You run your brain. You need to learn how to get a hold of your brain. Even though your brain is more open to bad things, that doesn't mean you should live a bad life, that you should never risk, never open up. You can choose how you think, which changes the way you feel. You can't always stop your thoughts from wandering, but you can choose what to pay attention to. You are not your brain, and you run your brain like a business, like Mind Inc. You can't control everything that happens, but your attention and actions will decide which projects get money. You choose what to pay attention to in each moment. And when you wake up in the morning, you can decide if you want to scroll through social media for news for hours, or if you want to start your day with a mindful routine. You can decide whether to turn on the TV, log on to CNN or Fox or whatever, and listen to the news while you eat and listen to all of the negative headlines in the world. And you can't even enjoy your cup of coffee. Or when you're stuck in traffic, waiting for a bus, waiting for your client, you can choose to listen to things that report bad news, or listen to your friend who just pours her heart out and never lets you get a word in edgewise, and it's all about her and her problems. You can choose to stew over the people who've screwed you over, right? And never forgive. Or you can change. You could commit to change. And this is where step 2 comes into play. The second thing you need to do is to make the most out of your wiring now that you know how you're wired and how it works. Step 1 is to understand your brain. Step 2 is to rewire your brain. Rewiring your brain. It might sound daunting, but I promise you it's possible. It's also backed by science that it is possible, and I personally experienced it, as have many others. So when it comes to rewiring your brain, you have to understand that your brain is connected to your body, and it's not just about rewiring your brain. You have to rewire, by the way, your entire body because it's connected to your brain. It acts accordingly, and it does what you want it to do. And this is where fitness comes in. Yeah, I'm going to go there. I'm going to talk about it. Some of you guys have been slacking, and you know it affects your mental health. It's actually been proven to affect your mental health. I just read something this morning that running is just as strong, if not stronger, as antidepressants. I was looking at Dr. Rhonda Patrick's Instagram. So I found my fitness. Go check her out. You know, in my earliest podcast too, if you're an OG listener of Pretty Rich Podcast, I talked about with my co-host back in the day, Anthea, about the correlation between fitness and financial success. The discipline and consistency that's required to create a fit body are the same things that are required to build a successful business. You need discipline, you need consistency. It's the same. Am I right? Both are required. That's why getting uncomfortable is so key. You know, things might feel uncomfortable at first for doing any of these things, but what ends up happening is that successful people look for ways to enjoy what most people see as a chore or difficult. You know, it's about reframing your mind to whatever task is at hand that is uncomfortable. It's about learning to enjoy the suck, embracing the suck, right? This is something that you have to do, and you can't do it without discipline. You can't do it without repetitiveness. And I have to tell you, the enjoyment isn't always there, right? You still need to negotiate. You still need to be the CEO of your mind. You still need to be Mind Inc. So let me tell you, though, a story about when I went through a ginormous growth spurt in terms of business and fitness. It happened at the same time. It happened at the same time in the same year, fitness and business. After my second son was born, I got really into podcasts. I don't know why, but I was kind of late to the party. I got really into podcasts. It was like 2017, something like that. I loved spending more time in the car. I enjoyed longer drives because I wished that I could just stay in the car and listen to this podcast, right? I wish that the drive was longer. And I thought about it. Another thing I really hated to do was go on the treadmill, but it's been something I've been meaning to do, go on the treadmill for like 30 or 45 minutes every day. And I thought, hey, if I love podcasts so much and learning so much, maybe I can get a workout in at the same time. Well, that's exactly what happened. Because I loved it so much, I figured it out. I created a morning routine for myself that I really stuck to because it helped me get my body healthy and moving. And at the same time, it also made my mind stronger and smarter. And because of that, because I was getting better, because I was my business, you are your business, I made more money that year. I would wake up every morning at 5 a.m. This whole 5 a.m. thing, love it or hate it, it's massively talked about in the success community of having a strong morning routine and waking up early, as you guys probably know. I'm not saying that you have to be an early riser in order to be uber successful, but it definitely helps to do something consistently. And I just found it easier to do it first thing in the morning because nobody was up yet. My phone wasn't going off yet. And at the time, my team wasn't on the other side of the coast or in different time zones. And so I wasn't getting work emails or work texts or phone calls yet. Now I do, right? But I mean, it was just the quietest time of the day. It's really convenient to make sure that you actually get your me time if you do it before the rest of the world rises. So I got into this habit of not only waking up early, but sleeping early so I could get a full night's sleep, wake up early, go to the gym, listen to podcasts, enriching my body and my mind at the same time. And I was pumped, right? I had my little caffeine rush going. And I have to say, at first, it was really difficult. But that dopamine hit I received from that routine, and the more I did it, and the more changes happened in my life, far outweighed the pain of waking up early. When my alarm would go off, oh my gosh, please, right? It's like, I do not want to get up. I want to keep sleeping. My body needs more sleep. I keep saying that my body needs more sleep, right? I kept saying that, but then I really did not want to get up. But I told myself, if I just pushed through 10 steps to get to the bathroom, that bad sleepy feeling would go away and I would be pumped. And that's the hardest part of waking up early. It's just that first 10 seconds. It was so difficult to wake up at 5 a.m. Pushing through that first 10 seconds, those first 10 steps, right? And as I was walking, I remember all of the reasons why I was doing this. And then it just became second nature because I know that it always feels far better to get this me time in, get this exercising, enriching my body in the day and enriching my mind in and spending time with God too. I would definitely pray and listen to worship music on the way to the gym. I loved it so much that it didn't matter how uncomfortable this moment was for me right after my alarm rings. I told myself that this discomfort will pass. I remember being physically transformed and mentally transformed during this year that I had developed this habit. Not only was I looking better, getting healthier, but my mind was being filled with positive propaganda. And this is what I mean by making an argument for your dreams, because it's just as easy to create a routine around negativity. You might not even realize how negative your routine is because you've been living in it for so long. So if you want to make an argument for your dreams, you have to have a more positive routine, because in your routine might be, like I said, things like the news, calling a friend that doesn't really support you. You're listening to reasons why you can't. And it might come in the form of friends. It might come in the form of the news. It may come in the form of family. So if you do it this way, you need to change your mind for there to make any change. If you do it this way, you flood your mind with positivity. Those who are used to being successful know that they need to be around other successful people to get their head and their mind in the game. If you're used to being around successful people who are experiencing success in the thing that you're trying to do, don't you think you're going to be braver? Don't you think that's going to make you more consistent? Because hearing these conversations over and over again helps you build a case for why you can do something instead of why you can't. You have to fight for your dreams. This positive mindset stuff, it doesn't just happen. You guys probably see me as this like bright, energetic person, and a lot of times people say, where do you get all that energy? It doesn't just happen. I have to fight for my mind. And I truly believe, and I say this all the time, that if it's not on your calendar, it's not going to happen. For me, I wrote down fight for your mind at 5 a.m. on my calendar every day. And honestly, I don't know if I would be who I am today if I didn't make that commitment, if I hadn't been so disciplined. Once you know how your brain works and you've worked to rewire it, right? Because we have, number one, understand how your brain works. Number two, rewire your brain. The third and last thing you need to do is you need to change your environment. You need to get plugged in. You need to join community. You need to get plugged in. You need to get accountability community. Join a group of people who talk about success. Getting rooms of people who believe in you, so you're not just getting it from your own journaling and listening to podcasts. If you're weird like me and you talk to yourself in the mirror, or aside from that, you need to find a community. It's important to find a community, especially if you didn't grow up with entrepreneurial parents. If you're surrounded by people who don't get it, don't understand what you're going through, or don't really see the vision you keep talking about, what you're so excited about, how are you going to keep going? You're human. Because being an entrepreneur can be very lonely, especially if you don't know anyone who's ever done what you're trying to do. Hang with the winners. Sit with the winners, because you're going to hear different things. The vibes are different. The conversations are higher. And that's the last piece of the puzzle if you need to make a case for your dreams, because the fire inside you will go out if it's not next to other heat or flames. If your flame is in the wind, is in the cold wind, and people are trying to blow it out, how do you expect to keep it alive? You need to stay warm, and you need to ignite the fire inside of you with other people, with other super amazing, like-minded, super positive, successful beauty entrepreneurs who won't settle. And that is also what Pretty Rich Bosses is about. And I think the reason why we have so much success in my program and my community is because people lift each other up, and instead of putting people down. We're breaking stereotypes that the beauty industry is a catty place to be. I've seen friendships and communities grow from this program that truly changes lives, and I feel so humbled and lucky that I get to witness these communities develop and these friendships develop, see them from myself close hand, especially when I meet you guys in person and see all of my students at these retreats and conferences and other events. Ooh, it's different than a Zoom room. Seeing them do big things, hearing their stories that change their personal economies, it's really moving. And sometimes I get overwhelmed just thinking about it. You know, I try not to think about it too much because I might just be a wet blanket all day long. Because this program, oh my gosh, and everybody involved, it's not just my doing, you know, it's a whole team changing lives. So to sum it up, if you want to argue for your dreams instead of your limits, you need to, 1, know how your brain works. 2, you need to rewire your brain. And 3, you need to get connected. Get connected inside a community. If I missed anything, I want you guys to chat with me about it. Send me a DM. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Pretty Rich Podcast as much as I enjoyed making it for you, and as good as it felt to share what's worked for me and for a lot of beauty entrepreneurs that I've mentored. If you have any feedback at all, like I said, send me a DM. I live on Instagram at @RealSheilaBella. That is a wrap for another episode of PRP. If you guys have any other questions that you want me to answer on this podcast, you can text me 310-388-4588. That's 310-388-4588. And I'll always be happy to text you back. I'm very reachable. And thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. Until next time.